All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hey, thanks for everybody for taking the time to tune in and really pay some attention to this incredibly important tool, LinkedIn. And we're going to spend the next hour. I want to talk to you. First of all, I want to introduce myself, and then I'm going to talk about how the hour is going to go, and then we're going to just jump right into it. My name's Charlie King. I'm a leadership coach and a LinkedIn trainer. So I work with groups to improve profiles in LinkedIn, and this is something I just love to do. And it's so much fun, and it's so great to be able to take professionals and really improve their LinkedIn profiles so that they really are meeting the expectations they have of what they'd like to get out of having a LinkedIn profile. So I'm a leadership coach for businesses. I do training, I speak publicly, and I'm also a family man. I have 2 kids and a beautiful wife, and a silly dog who barks too much. So what I want to share with you is this next hour is going to be a presentation, but it's also going to be an opportunity for Q&A, questions and answers. I've opened up the Q&A link on the far right-hand side of the screen, or at least on the far right side of my screen. And that's a great place to go ahead and place questions if you have them as we're going along. If they look like they're brief, I'll try and take them right away. But we do have a fair amount of content to get into. And any questions I don't get during the presentation, I can answer at the very end if we've got time, or I can follow up with an email as well for those who need to jump off. And I can be around for a few minutes after the end of it for folks to connect with me. So first of all, really, thank you so much. We're really going to cover, there are 8 major components to your profile, and we're going to talk about what those 8 are, why they're important, and what the best practices are for optimizing your profile and your layout. So let's just jump into it, shall we? So part of the assumption we're going to make here is that you already have a profile. Now, unfortunately, this will probably fall on deaf ears for folks who don't know what LinkedIn is, or they've been invited to it and they're not really sure if they should be a part of it or they shouldn't be a part of it. If you're not on LinkedIn at all, this will probably not have the same value for you. What I might suggest for those who are not on LinkedIn but are trying to figure out whether it has value for them, it's a little bit like Yoda told Luke in Star Wars, which is, either do or do not do, do not try, right? There is no try, just do or do not do. And that's really the big thing about LinkedIn. Either have an account and completely fill it out and be intentional about what you put on it, or choose not to do it at all. I know a lot of professionals, very successful, who aren't on LinkedIn at all, and that's an intentional choice they made. But it has a real reflection if you choose to have a LinkedIn account and then don't upgrade the profile, or don't optimize the profile, or don't pay a lot of attention to the profile, because it is a reflection of who you are as a professional. So that's definitely for those of you who don't have a LinkedIn account. And I might suggest, take a look around. I'll have further conversations about this. You're welcome to stay, of course. But that's probably going to be getting an account and scooting yourself around and figuring it out will be a better place to start, by getting an account and then coming in and coming back and reviewing this 1-hour conversation. So, we're going to do this light overview of each section. We're going to go through some best practices, but at the end of the day, you guys are the most important part of this presentation. I don't get to be here. I don't get to be here without you, and what you get out of it is more important than what I have to say. So if there are things that are not getting addressed by me in any given section, please speak up or put something in the Q&A, or you can always follow up with me afterwards. I'm always looking to improve this program. If you see that there's something that you aren't getting answered, please speak up. This is valuable time of yours that you're willing to invest in watching this, and I really appreciate it. All that being said, it's really critical that you get what you need out of this program. And if I'm not speaking to it, please ask right away. Thanks so much. Like, really, without you guys, there's nothing at all. For those of you who are in the room, if you aren't actively speaking or have a question that we're interacting with, can you do me a favor and go ahead and mute yourself? Go ahead and mute yourself now. It just will allow the flow to move forward without without too much ado. Excellent. Does anybody have any questions before we start? It doesn't appear anybody's got any questions before we start. That's fantastic. All right, so let's just jump right in, shall we? I want to lay a little groundwork first about, like, almost, I don't know anybody who doesn't know about LinkedIn. And my experience is most people go, I know about it and I think I should belong, but I don't know why. Or I belong to LinkedIn, but I'm not sure if it does anything for me, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it now that I'm here. I am amazed at the number of folks that have this experience, and it's not a surprise. It's not a surprise. LinkedIn is the very antithesis, the very opposite of Facebook and Twitter, where Facebook and Twitter are really interested in eyeballs and exciting things and, ooh, you know, what's that shiny new goats in pajamas video? LinkedIn is anything but that. As a matter of fact, it's downright boring. It's absolutely downright boring because it's all about business, and it's about nothing else, and it's not designed to be exciting, and it's not designed to have any of the fun stuff that we come to expect from our social media. It's also what makes it a powerful tool, because those who understand it and can take advantage of it are getting eyeballs, influential eyeballs on their profile and on what they're up to that you don't get in social media, in other places, in a Facebook, in a Twitter, in an Instagram. You're getting influencers who are actually watching what you're up to, because so few are intentionally choosing who they are and how they're participating in LinkedIn. But here's the big deal, right? LinkedIn has grown exponentially over the last few years. They were the first player to bat in the business social media realm, and they've gone nuts with it. They have grown, what was it? Let's see. Last year, they grew at a 25% per quarter revenue increase in fiscal 2014, which is an amazing amount of growth. They are growing at an annual rate of, what is it, 40, their revenues grew 40, let's see, it's last fiscal year is 25% per quarter, adding 2 members per second throughout the world. There are 347 million people who belong to LinkedIn. 347 million. The biggest user is the United States. And anybody guess what the second biggest user is? The second biggest user is India. A lot of people are like, oh, Canada, Great Britain, something like that. No, it's actually India. So you start to take a look, and the moment that you start to take a look, and then after that, it's countries like Brazil and China. And all of a sudden you really get what a global network, LinkedIn is really reaching out to, and the potential that it includes. Its revenues grew 45% last year. And why that's important for non-investors in LinkedIn is that it's got an incredibly powerful financial model, and that absolutely is critical to reflect their growth. They're investing hugely in Google integration and creating services and content for corporations, which means they're getting their buy-in, and the corporations are now playing a bigger role inside LinkedIn. So there's a partnership piece, and they're increasing their level of services for end users, which is where also a bunch of their revenue comes from. So fantastic. Oh, it looks like good friend Aaron Murphy just joined the conversation. Aaron, welcome. And thanks for your question. I will see what I can do about getting that question answered. You know, and LinkedIn isn't just about their investment. It isn't just about the money they're making that's the growth. There are a number of key factors in the workplace that have really spoken to why it's growing so quickly. The first one is obvious, right? It's the growth of online jobs. There are more people working online than there ever have been before, and it's growing exponentially. I don't have the numbers on it, but it's really an acknowledged fact these days. Computer-based jobs are a vast majority of the jobs that are going on these days, and everybody's ability to connect over computers is really the big deal. So another one that's really amazing is in the downturn in 2008, after 9/11, and increasingly in companies, they're slashing budgets for things like recruiting and HR, where they had nationwide events, where they would go to different places, where they had big staffs for HR and recruiting functions. Most companies have taken those away and moved them online. And LinkedIn has leveraged themselves to become that place to support corporate HR and recruiting. So recruiters are finding themselves all over LinkedIn looking for new prospects. Corporations, a lot are actually doing their recruiting through LinkedIn. So you can actually apply for a job inside of LinkedIn, which, if you're looking for work, speaks even further to how important it is that your profile be optimized. We're talking about the growth of the global workforce, and that people are working in Malaysia and India and Great Britain and Spain and Brazil, and they're all working together across high-speed networks. And the other piece that I think really speaks to me loudly is the shrinking number of long-term career jobs. It is not uncommon to really understand that the number of jobs that you're going to have for the rest of your life are few and far between, if at all. Where it really may have existed for our parents or our parents' parents, doesn't really exist anymore, which has led to people really committing to creating their own identity even when they're inside a job. So whether you're a contract worker or you actually work for a large organization, it's, yes, this is the job I do, but here's who I am in it, because I can't guarantee that my job will continue to be here forever. And my experience is that businesses understand that, and they're certainly more tolerant than they ever have been about people creating themselves independently, even inside their job. So the bottom line is, the takeaway is that LinkedIn really matters. It actually really matters for your professional presence. It matters for your professional growth. And it is an amazing tool, if you choose to use it as such, to grow your professional network. This is like my final thing here is, it's really a digital business card that's there when you're not. So when somebody sees a gap in their organization, they're trying to fill a role, or there's a service they know they need, it's very often not when you're available to talk with them, or they're not ready to talk to you yet, but they want to know a little bit more about you. So at 3:30 in the morning, when that HR director is stressing out about who we're going to get to do our social media and marketing, and they're sitting at their computer in the jammies with the bunny slippers, right? And they're like, hey, what am I going to do about this? They're going to be looking at your profile, and your profile is there for you when you can't be there. So whatever you put up there is a representation of you. So you want to put your best professional foot forward. So fantastic. Let's jump into it. Are there any questions before we jump into some of the more nuts and bolts of optimizing your profile? Doesn't appear there are, so let's jump into it. I'm going to do a quick screen share here. Whoop. There we are. That's what I was looking for. Thank you guys for your patience. This is brand new. Ooh, look at that. That rocks. So what you should be looking at right now, is a version or a small pic of my photo in my profile. I did take my profile as the one that we were taking a look at for a number of different reasons, but it was easiest. So the first thing we want to talk about is your picture. The picture is, they always say about a picture is worth 1,000 words. It is you when you're not there. It shares who you are in the world, what it is you bring. So there's, people read so much into pictures. So we really want to put our best foot forward with our picture. This can be done in a whole lot of different ways, some of which I've demonstrated here. There is no perfect picture and there's no right picture, but these are some best practices to consider. The first one is you really want to take a look at what you're wearing during your picture. If you are looking to create a professional presence, you might want to consider whether jeans and a t-shirt is the outfit you want to be wearing to be photographed in, and what impact that's going to have on the viewer. So what is it that they see in you that, is that something that's a reflection of their professional presence, or somebody you'd like to work with, or somebody you'd like to bring into your organization as an expert, or someone who can provide a service to your organization? So always wearing your professional clothes or those that represent the field that you're in is really strong. You take a look at financial advisors. Financial advisors almost exclusively are going to be in a tie and shirt and dress jacket, where real estate agents are going to find themselves more formal but have a little more flexibility in it. All the way down to web designers who sometimes hold it as a badge of courage that they can dress in Converse high tops, sneakers, and t-shirts. I would always recommend a professional photograph, or if nothing else, no selfies. If you can't afford a professional photographer, find somebody, find a friend, find somebody who's got some eye for pictures. We all have one friend who's like, oh yeah, no, I know exactly what that should look like, or I'd be happy to take a few pictures. The cameras in our phones these days are so powerful. It's not difficult to take a good picture. You really want to look your best and have them take a whole bunch of pictures so you have a number to choose from. Try and edit it as little as possible, the photograph, and then really take a look at it from there. And the same thing with not taking a selfie. One of the things that I think is hilarious is when people go very serious in their photograph. Like, this is a very serious moment. I think you should take me very, very seriously because I am a serious person doing a serious job. Like somehow a serious presence is denoting your professionalism. I might suggest that's not the case, is that people like to work with people who are fun to be around and smile and don't mind having a good time. So unless your job is coroner, you might want to consider smiling for your photograph. You'll notice if you take a look at my photograph that the background's kind of neutral. You don't want your background to be distracting. You want it to be relatively minimum. You'll notice here that my photograph, my head actually takes up about 60% of the image, and it's intentional. That's a best practice, mostly because it ends up being so small when it shows up on a computer screen that you want to maximize your face so that people really can get a good feel for you. How many times have we quietly Googled somebody while we're talking to them on the phone for people we haven't met before? I most certainly am guilty of looking folks up on LinkedIn when I'm going to go get a coffee with them if I don't know what they look like, so I can recognize them when they walk in the door. So always having a photo that's got a neutral background, something that shows your face prominently, and something that people will recognize. And they won't recognize you if it's a photo from 20 years ago. I remember, who was it when, for those of you in your 40s or 50s, you might remember Ann Landers was a popular columnist who still had the same profile photo from 1951 when I met her in her late 80s, in 1980 or 1979 or something like that. So you always want a current photo of yourself as well. It always is a little off-putting when somebody shows up and they don't look at all like what their photo was, because they're a lot older now. And by the way, for those of you who aren't looking like you are 20 years younger, remember, age equals experience and wisdom. So we want to own it. So the next piece, I'm going to go ahead and scroll down. Are there any questions? Are there any questions about your photo before I go on? Does not appear there are. Bear with me one sec. All right. The next part is called your headline. I want to talk a little bit about your headline. Below your name, you're going to find something that looks like it's often filled by your job description. LinkedIn's default is to fill in the lines below your name as a job description, and it will automatically fill that for you. And most people think that that's the only way it can be. As it turns out, that's not the case. This is called your headline. Your headline is 120 characters of customizable space for you. You can put anything you want in here. It can be your job description, or it can be anything you want people to know about the world. This is amazing, actually. This is a huge opportunity for those of you who are in the services business. It's a great way in that 5 to 10 seconds that someone surfs over your profile, you want them to stop and spend some more time with you. This is a great place for you to create language that makes them stop. I'm constantly playing with mine a little bit to see how I can optimize it or make it a little more grabbing and have it be a reflection of kind of who I am, my energy, and what I provide. So I'll put some provocative language like bigger fish to fry or mind-blowing, and those are just some examples. For those of you who aren't restricted by regulations to have some flexibility in your job description, I really recommend that your headline be this place where you really can express yourself and make it an eye grabber. There was a woman who was in mergers and acquisitions who I saw her profile photo, and her headline says, "I blow shit up." And no joke. And her profile photo looked like she was a woman who did that. And it was absolutely a mind grabber. And I was like, wow, you absolutely will get who that woman is in the world. So absolutely, you really want to take advantage of your headline. Work with a friend. If you're not good at wordsmithing, reach out to a friend who is and say, hey, I want to make a fun headline. So you can play with that and come up with something creative. Any questions about the headline before we go on? There is not. Excellent. All right. This next piece is your experience. Now, this is the thing that you filled in automatically when you joined LinkedIn. And very often people put in their resume, the resume, sort of this is what I did, this is the year, the time that I did it. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. If what you want to focus on is making sure you have a professional presence and that everything lines up nicely with who you've been in the past to who you are in the present, there's nothing wrong with doing exactly that. I also think it's a great opportunity for you to line yourself up with not only where you're at, but where you want to be. So if you are going to look at your past work through the filter of either what job you're looking for, what clients you're looking for, or what opportunities you're open for, you can actually get kind of creative with the language about what you used to do. Don't change what you used to do, but the way you describe it might reflect something different. There's a fair amount of flexibility in the length. What I notice for most people is if HR is looking at you for a job, this is definitely a place they're going to spend a fair amount of time. What I notice is, other than that, a lot of people sort of skim over it and move on. So these are a great place for your job, the dates, some description, and you'll notice at the bottom of this are recommendations that are lined up with the work that you're doing, which is a nice thing to have down there. We'll talk about recommendations in a little bit. I'd love it if you'd notice on the right-hand side of my screen, that there's a box that says notify your network. And in my screenshot, it says no. That's very intentional. LinkedIn is by default going to notify your entire network anytime you change your profile. So if you change your photograph, it'll notify everybody. If you change your job title, it'll notify everybody. If you change what you're there for, it will tell everybody. I had a friend who changed why he was in LinkedIn and what he was interested in from networking to looking for new job opportunities, and left his network notifications on, and it notified his employer and everybody he works with that he was now on LinkedIn looking for a new job. Needless to say, about a week later, he was asked to leave that workplace. So it's for me, it's always a no-brainer that I just leave it off. You certainly can, if you've got an exciting new photograph or you want everybody to know about your new job that you've taken on, it's a great place to turn it on for that. But by default, I often leave it off, and that's my best that's my best recommendation for you here. Excellent. Are there any other questions about experience before we go on? Great. So experience is pretty straightforward. It's just like you'd expect it to be, what you did, when you did it. You really don't want to lie in here. You don't want to exaggerate it, because your former coworkers and your former boss is probably on LinkedIn and would probably be aware of you doing that and might say something about it. So you want to be careful to not put anything down that you didn't do. And here's the other one. Don't lie. We all kind of get tempted sometimes to do a white lie about what we used to do or how it really is like that other thing when it's really not. Don't lie. My suggestion, what I really invite you to do is just own your history. Like if you have been in multiple different fields like I have, own your history and what it allows you to bring to the new work you're in. So where you may not have been in this field before, or you don't have the 20 years of experience that other people have, what you are bringing is something unique because of the rest of your work history. Maybe you're going into the customer service from the technology side. Well, you want to own how the technology side will serve you in the customer service side, or vice versa, or looking at new work like that. Those are really great opportunities to shape the conversation. But how can you shape it and continue to be consistent with what actually happened? So we are going to move on to education. This is pretty straightforward, right? There's no big surprise here. This is what you did, when you did it. And sorry, I got distracted by something on the screen. What I love is when you are in the education piece, you'll notice that I have two logos on the far right-hand side of my profile of my education. That's because both of those universities ended up having university pages in LinkedIn. So they pull the logo from those organizations and it'll show your education. And I did something a little bit different here. If you'll notice under where I went to paramedic school, because I spent a decade in emergency services, it doesn't have particularly anything to do with what I'm doing now. It actually makes me an amazing coach because of some stuff I learned by being a paramedic. I think it gives me a unique insight, but it doesn't really, the details of all the certifications I have and what, like all of that stuff is less important than what I took away from it. And so that's what I really put in here was what I took away from my education. Same with my college education, which was now some almost 26 years ago. So it has little reflection on what I do today or what got me here. But what it does But what it does is it gives some insight about who I am in the world. And by the way, don't have a misspelling on your LinkedIn profile, especially don't have a misspelling and then give a webinar about it and tell people not to misspell. And then as you're telling them, notice you have a misspelling. I actually was a political science major, not a political science major. I will be fixing that after this. Humility, it's my favorite place. Any questions about education before we move on? Fantastic. So from education, we're going to move down to recommendations. So recommendations are fantastic. They are a place for others to speak about you, and they're an opportunity for you to speak about what you know of others. I think nothing speaks higher of a professional when people who have done work with them, are willing to say so publicly and acknowledge them for the difference they made for them. It has huge weight with potential employers and potential prospects. Like, why would I hire this person for this role? Why would I hire this person for a permanent role? Or it gives them an opportunity to see a side of you that you didn't write, that was written by somebody else, and they had to own it because their picture and their title and their LinkedIn profile are connected to the recommendation. So it really gives some authenticity to it. And so if you're wondering how to get recommendations, and they're, like I said, they're important. It's the first thing is make sure to ask for them. Don't be afraid to ask for recommendations from clients you've done work with, from coworkers you've done work with, from former bosses you've done work with, which is also a recommendation. Why not to burn bridges as you're leaving? But getting recommendations is really key in moving forward. The other thing about getting recommendations too is people often get a request for recommendation and they think, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to give that person a recommendation. And then they quickly forget it. And it's not because you're not important, but it is because they're busy just like you are. Don't be afraid to ask them again, and even reach out by email, or better yet, by phone, and say, hey, I know you told me that you were going to recommend me, but I hadn't seen it yet. And I was curious if something changed, or if you thought you were still going to do that. I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to move forward. And 9 times out of 10, people are like, oh, absolutely, I'm going to, and they often get on it. The other way to get recommendations is to give them. So if you have clients who, if you've had folks that you've worked with who made a difference for you, or they stood out as excellent service providers or great coworkers, or there was something unique about them that made them different, I really highly suggest that you give recommendations, and very often it turns around in you getting them. It's a little weird if you give them and then turn around and immediately ask for them. But I think that there's a piece about the generosity of giving them that opens up a lot of people to be like, hey, you know what? Thank you so much for that. And I'd like to give you a recommendation. So, excellent. I'm not sure who put up the comment or the recommendation testimonial from the ex. I don't know. I didn't know I had an ex who'd given me a testimonial. I'm going to have, or a recommendation. I'm going to have to go back. I had no idea. I've been married for 19 years. My exes are way exes at this point. Are there any requests, or are there any questions about recommendations? I don't see. Excellent. Let's talk about volunteer experience and causes. Depends on who you are, but if you're involved in volunteer services or places that you donate your time to make a difference for others, that's something that really weighs heavily on professional relationships. If you are willing to give of your time freely, and your expertise and the value that you bring everywhere that for which you get paid, and you're willing to bring that to a nonprofit or an organization that could use the help, that has huge value for people. People see that as a values reflection of indicating that your community is more important to you or is important enough to you for you to donate your time. That's something that I'm a big fan of. So if you are doing that work, make sure to own it. It is absolutely a reflection of who you are, and it can make a real difference for some folks. That being said, I'm not going to spend any more time in volunteer experience. It's just my 2 cents about it. And we're going to move on now to skills and endorsements. I just sort of, I got the skills going on here. So you're going to start seeing skills in here. And this is that box at the top of the window. This is the skills at the top of the window, where when you log in, very often you'll see the, would you like to endorse the following people for these skills? And sometimes they reflect your contacts and what they do, and sometimes they don't. And it's a nice quick shout out to people. I think LinkedIn uses them like Facebook uses, quote, likes, unquote. It's a quick way to make people feel better. It's a quick way for people to glean or get an idea of where your strengths lie. They don't rocket change people's perception of you, but it's just another piece of the puzzle as people are trying to understand you better in your profile. Now, here's an interesting thing that folks have run into. If you're somebody who is found yourself in a new role, a new job description, or a new field altogether, the things for which you have been acknowledged for in the past may no longer apply. What you can do is you can reorder the skills so that they so first of all, skills that you have been acknowledged for in the past are now at the top instead of the bottom, regardless of their number. You can add skills that you'd like to be acknowledged for as well. So you can add skills. So where if I got into a field called that was, for instance, specifically around customer service, I could create a skill called customer service and move it to the top. And then what I'd probably do is reach out to my connections and ask them to endorse me for customer service, because I'm trying to, like, a conversation might go like this, you know, dear Bob, I'm looking to be endorsed. I'm looking to build my recognition as a customer service specialist. Would you mind endorsing me? Would you not mind endorsing me for customer service? And then ask them to go over, find the customer service endorsement on your profile and endorse you for it. And that's the way you can build those numbers up. So you can actually shift the way people see you. You can shift the way that your professionalism shows up through skills and endorsements. All right, now we're getting into the really juicy part. So here's the juicy part. The juicy part is your summary. Now, this is often overlooked and people are a little confused about a summary. Let me share you what I see about a summary. The summary is this massive invitation, especially if you're someone who's more comfortable with writing than you are with speaking. This is a place, it is a blank slate that LinkedIn put in. Everything else is fill in the box. Fill in the box with a little bit of description. The summary is anything but that. The summary is a blank slate of a huge amount of landscape, a huge landscape that you can fill with whatever you want. This is a real place to reflect where you shine. What is it that sets you apart? There are lots of architects out in the world. There are lots of real estate agents out in the world. There are lots of lawyers out in the world. There are lots of financial advisors out in the world. And there will be people in different companies. There will be people with different backgrounds. There will be people with different endorsements and education. But what sets them apart and what makes you unique is the thing that you want to reflect in your summary. This is a place to share what makes you different, what makes you tick, what excites you, what clients you're looking for, why are you different, what makes you unique, what excites you, and what are you up to? It is a blank slate. It's a great place. It's completely free form. You can talk about values and assets. tangible and non-tangible experiences, or your own perspective on a field that is filled with everybody who looks at things the same way. This is also a great place to reflect what others say about working with you. So even if you're light on recommendations, you might reach out to former customers and say, hey, putting together my profile on LinkedIn, and I want to see if I can reflect what people see about the work that they do with me. Would you mind sharing with me what you got out of our work together? And you know, for those of you, especially in the service industry, it's like, what is it beyond the nuts and bolts of what we did? If we did something more than put together an executive plan, what was it about me that set me apart from anybody else who might do this work? And listen to what they say, and then find someone to help you write it. This is a really juicy place to come and play. It's super important. And yeah, absolutely. And so I found myself putting about, you know, how clients are finding me and what they're up to, and like that. So that's the summary. As you can see, there are endless numbers of directions and more information and more things we could talk about in each section. We haven't gotten to greater uses of LinkedIn. We haven't talked about groups. We haven't talked about searching. We haven't talked about using LinkedIn as a tool for whatever your goals are, and choosing goals for using LinkedIn, which for those of you who aren't, vast majority of people join LinkedIn, but they don't know why. And the why is the most important part. Why is going to shape how you design your profile and where you participate inside LinkedIn. Once you've decided that and you have structured your profile to meet those goals, if you're willing to spend 15 minutes 3 times a week, you'd be amazed at the kind of impact an effective LinkedIn strategy can have in growing yourself professionally, getting new contacts, getting new referral partners, getting new prospects, and connecting with professionals worldwide. So all that being said, I've got a couple of questions up. First one is, hi, Charlie. What's a good, here, I'm going to go, let's go back. Wait, hold on. Let's go back from screen sharing. Stop. There we are. Look at that. So we've got a question. It's from Aaron Murphy. Hi, Aaron. Hi, Charlie. What's a good baseline of eyes on me for views a day or so? I've been 180 to 270 highest for 90-day period. Good, bad, decent? Well, it's an excellent question, Aaron, and I'm afraid I don't have the right answer for you. The metrics are one thing. The question is, it's really much more about engagement. It's really much more about engagement. It's engaging with the eyes on what you're up to. I always suggest when I'm working with clients that they create things that invite people to engage with them and not just eyeballs on. Because I just surfed through a whole bunch of stuff on Facebook and on LinkedIn, and I put on eyeballs on a lot of stuff, but I didn't particularly engage in it, and it'll go right outside. It'll go right out my short-term memory in very short order. I think the key to having an effective LinkedIn strategy for updates is to create content that demands or invites participation. Whether it's whether it's writing an article, putting up a podcast, or a video, is what questions can you ask? What follow-up can you do? And then stand on top of it, right? Like, so, if you present a video about, or an article about one thing or another, who is it that inspires you about the article that you might tag in a comment? Like, you might post an article and put below it, I read this article and thought of Bob Smith because I know that this is something that he is always talking about and sharing, to which Bob is now going to get a notification that he's been mentioned in a comment. He'll probably surf over and he may participate as well. And that's where you really start to see the traction, right? That's where you see the traction, where people are actually in a conversation inside LinkedIn. The more you can get people in a conversation, it doesn't become just this running feed of people continuing to post over and over again. And what I found is, when you are willing to step out and participate, not just in your own posts, but in others as well, that dramatically increases the amount of traffic that comes across you every day. So Aaron, the numbers that you put up, if people are independently coming across your profile in those kinds of numbers, that's huge. And my question is, what are you doing with it now? So understanding that people are coming across is fantastic. LinkedIn gives you some amazing tools to be able to track back who those people are, depending on the level. If you have a free account, you get really limited view. If you have a paid account, you get a lot more information. It may suggest demographics of who's looking at you, whether it's income range, job title, location, years in service, things like that. But it also gives you an idea of who you're reaching, which may change your message. If suddenly you're realizing that your message, all these people are coming to see my profile, oh my goodness, and they're all coming from Chicago. I wonder what it is about Chicago that draws people to my posts. Or you find out it's not septuagenarians or octogenarians, but it's octogenarians, or you don't find that it's men who you thought were your target audience, but it's increasingly women. Well, it might actually change the way that you post and the way that you share. So it's huge amounts of information, and then you get to choose what you want to do with it. Never be afraid to, if somebody comes by, to reach back to them and say, I saw you came by to see my profile. Thanks so much for visiting. I see we're not connected on LinkedIn. Would you like to connect? It's like an invitation to connect with somebody. So I'm always a big fan of that. And the personal reach, that personal where you're editing that personal reach out, where it's not, I'd like to add you to my LinkedIn network, but it's like, hi David, I saw you came by. I was really impressed by, your profile, or we're not connected on LinkedIn. I think it might be worthwhile. Would you be interested? The personal message really resonates because people are so spammed so heavily across LinkedIn, across social media, across everything. Anything that grabs their attention because it's different is the kind of thing that they're going to resonate with and more likely to participate with. So the next question is, I've heard video is everything for sharing. Who you are and what you do, and I have some videos I've done up in my profile. Agree? Anything else? Better to consider? I couldn't agree more. Video gives people that intimate look. Video gives people that, what's it like to be in the room with this person? What is it like? What is it that they bring to the room when they're opening their mouth and speaking? What is it they look like? What is it? There is so much, if a picture says 1,000 words, a video says infinitely more about that. And it's who we are when we're in those videos, which sort of raises the bar on the videos. I think videos are important. I think they're incredibly important to keep short and to the point. And I think that what I love the most about LinkedIn is when you post things to your profile like videos, and there are a couple of videos on mine, is that it links them permanently to your profile. It links them permanently to your profile. So for instance, I shot a couple of YouTube videos that were for entrepreneurs about productivity and getting over stuff that get in the way. And I put them up on my YouTube channel, and then I just linked it to LinkedIn, or I put it up in LinkedIn, and it's permanently attached there. So once again, 3 o'clock in the morning, the HR director or the CEO who's standing by their computer in their bunny slippers is like, is this the guy to hire? Is this the person we want to bring in? Once again, videos can be that thing that can be you in the room when you can't be there. So like I said, it does raise the bar a little bit on the quality of the videos, and not so much the video quality, not the professionalism of it, but the who you're being in the videos. So that's really the important piece. And so, yeah, I'm a big fan. Like, have at it. The more the merrier, because you never know what message you're bringing that will reach out to that one person. Like that one day you put up that one post about that thing that didn't seem to resonate with anybody, but 6 months later resonated with the one person who reached out and said, hey, yours is the kind of work that we want to bring in. Can we, engage you for the next year at 5 times your current rate, like that. So don't be afraid. The worst thing you can do is do nothing. And that's really something I want folks to take away from this. The worst thing you can do is nothing. People can't find out the value you bring. People cannot find out who you are. People cannot find out your perspective or your insights if you do not share them with them. So it's really important that you spend some time. Spend some time with a trusted friend. Spend some time with a coach. Spend some time with a mentor. Spend some time with a good friend who's a good wordsmith or who knows you really well. And start to tease those pieces out, because these are the things we want to share with the world. It is what sets you apart. There are 347 million people on LinkedIn. For those of you service providers, you don't need 347 million. You don't need 100 million. You don't need 50 million. You don't need 20 million. You don't need 1 million. You don't need 500,000. You don't need 10,000. You don't need 1,000. You don't need 100. You need like 10. So you think out of all 347 million people on LinkedIn, there are 10 people who would resonate with the work you do? I'm kind of guessing that there are a lot more than that. So that's my real invitation for you, is to chase it down like your hair's on fire. Like a buddy of mine says, ride fast and take chances. That's the thing there is to do with LinkedIn. Figure it out, screw it up, make some mistakes, have somebody go, I can't believe you said that. And then see, what was it? Was it something I would have said anyways? Should I clean it up? Well, sure. But people can't know the value you bring or the gift that you bring if you don't share it with them. So this is a call to action. This is your call to action. Here it is. Your coach is now wagging his finger in your face. This is your call to action. Be on LinkedIn. Participate. And I really invite you all to keep an eye out, because I'm going to be posting a few more videos coming up that talk about particular sections. I'm putting together a video program I'm going to offer for folks to download so that they can spend on their own time to profile or increase their value of their profile. I do in-person trainings. I'm hoping to create a web training around the whole thing. And any feedback and suggestions, I'm totally open to. And thanks so much for everybody who participated, who joined in, who participated in conversations. And if you were back there being quiet, thank you so much for that as well. And all that being said, I really would love to just leave you with this piece. There actually isn't anybody like you. There may be lots of people with your job description, but there's nobody like you. And what you bring is way more than enough. So all it is that you need to bring to yourself when you're designing your LinkedIn profile is you, because it is that quirky, weird side of you that makes you who you are. It's that unique perspective that you bring that makes you who you are. And it's critically important to the world that you get that voice out. It's critically important for your happiness, your health, your well-being, and I'm pretty sure for your abundance, like, you know, making a living and enjoying your life and living full out. So thanks again, everybody. Again, my name's Charlie King. I'm a business and leadership coach. I'm a LinkedIn trainer. I'm a presenter. I'm a public speaker. And I really want to thank you all for being here today. And if you see this, make sure to chase me down, connect with me on LinkedIn. And instead of just sending that, I'd like to connect you on LinkedIn, make sure you sort of like, hey, I saw your video. This is what I thought of it. I'd like to connect, because I'd love to see you on LinkedIn and see what you're up to. And if you have questions, you certainly can reach out to me either via my website or on LinkedIn. Website is charliekingcoaching.com and LinkedIn, Charlie King. Thanks so much. And I'll talk to you all soon, and I'll see you on LinkedIn.